Hey guys, I'm here taking a look at the Endwalker benchmark trailer. There's a whole bunch of new animations and abilities that we're seeing in here, so I'm going to go through it and try and break it down a little bit, take a look at what we're seeing and make educated guesses at what those abilities are. Obviously it's entirely speculation until we have tooltips and proper information, and essentially until we see it in the final build that goes live on November 19th. We don't actually know. Some of these may be cut at the end of the day. But we'll go through this, we'll take a look, and I'll let you guys know what I think about these abilities, and you guys can speculate below as well. So nothing really happens in this intro scene. I haven't seen anything in any of these overhead panning shots that, give anything away. I could be wrong and have missed something, but if I have, please let me know. So nothing really new comes in until about the 230 mark. And the very first thing we see is this new warrior ability. So you'll see he's putting his axe away and doing a triple punch. My assumption here is that just based on the animation, this is an upheaval variant, which you can use as an AoE. It could just be a straight upgrade to upheaval, but again, we'll have to wait and see. But just given the fact that he's putting his axe away and punching people, I'm assuming it's tied to that ability. Straight away, we've got three big abilities coming in here. Right, the first one is just based on the coloration and how it functions. It's a samurai AoE. They kind of have very complete AoE already, so my guess then is that this is an AoE variant of Shoha, which is their meditation stack spender. A lot of jobs have been getting that type of interaction now, where they'll have an ability and then an AoE variant of it. So similar to the upheaval variant that I just talked about before, I think this is the Shoha variant for samurai. Then we have a new dance for samurai. It's blue. I don't really know what that means. My guess is that it has something to do with maybe healing potency increased, or something else supportive in that regard, not necessarily offensively supportive. But again, this is one of those ones where there's kind of no real clue about what it's going to be. Then a new monk, what I'm assuming is GCD, just based on like the smoothness of it and the length of the animation. And then we get into this part, which is I think probably the most speculation, but I feel pretty sure about this. So I don't think these are new abilities that we're about to see. I in fact think that these are reskins, that we have new animations for existing abilities in the game, and I think this is going to happen a few times throughout this trailer. I think what we're seeing from the Dark Knight is a TBN, and from the Warrior is a Sheltron. These abilities animations are pretty outdated at this point, so bringing them up graphically makes a lot of sense in my eyes. So hopefully wait and see. I don't really think Paladin needs another defensive cooldown, and neither does Dark Knight. Tanks are already mega tanky as it is. Right, straight after that we have what appears to be a new Wind Mudra. What does that mean? So you can see the ninjas in as Mudra stance, so either my theories are we're going to get a new Mudra button, or this is something that can happen if you cast Huton while Huton is already up instead of refreshing the timer. We'll have to wait and see them. It could just be another OGCD or an in-key spender. Then we see Stardiver. This is nothing new. Right here is, I think that's a Heat Blast, right? I don't think I'm wrong. If it's not a Heat Blast, it's some other GCD, but I'm pretty sure that's a Heat Blast from a Machinist, who we're about to see right now. And going into what is, I think, one of the most interesting abilities here, this thing. This is what I think is finally the Verdot, or if we're being fancy, Verdot, because they're red mages. Interestingly though, the animation looks eerily familiar to when the Scions tried to trap Bahamut in the opening cinematic for A Realm Reborn with the help of the 12. Just something to speculate on. Next up we have a shotgun. So again, I don't think that this is a new ability. I think this is Spread Shot being given a new animation. Next up, we have a lot of Black Mage stuff, and I obviously looked at this one the most. So that one right there is an ability that I believe has existed canonically in the game, although not with this exact animation, since sometime during the... It was during the Shadowbringers leveling process. Y'shtola used that exact ability, but it was kind of a little bit scuffed in its animation. From breaking it down, I realized that it's at least a 2.5 second GCD. It could be longer. I don't know how much spell speed obviously is on the character that is casting that ability, but it's around about 2.5 seconds in cast. and it's probably Meltdown, because it shares a very similar animation with other Final Fantasy games. Right, then we got a whole bunch of NPC stuff. None of them seem to be doing anything new or exciting. They all look like custom animations that aren't the really obvious ones. Until we see Elfinau with the new Sage AoE heal. Which will be coming up just after we actually see Omega. He's back. So he's either been improved, or it's a new one. I don't know. We'll see. So here's the AoE heal you see from Elfinau. It's pretty standard. It looks like a GCD. We'll just have to wait and see what kind of effects it has. Probably a shield application as well. Can't believe we get to fight Omega twice this expansion, in what is probably going to be the Omega Ultimate, as we get later into the expansion. And then that guy. So coming up now, I think, is the interesting stuff there. So we saw what I think is another couple of reskinned heals. We've got obviously what is a water shielding spell, which Benison already is. So I'm assuming that this, what you see right on screen at this point in time, is just a reskinned Benison, because it wouldn't really make sense for them to have another single target shield that is water aspected. Doesn't really make sense to me. And the Scholar one just before this, my guess is that's an upgraded Excogitation. It is a OGCD, because we saw it was instant, and it just looks better now, I suppose. Right, so after that, there is nothing until 509, so we'll skip through to that. So there's a lot of stuff coming up in this short amount of time, so I'll have to break things down for you. I think this is the third of the reskin animations for healers, this one being Intersection. So one of the things we know is that Nocturnal Sect is being removed. Astro is going to be purely a regen healer. So for them to have moons around them when they're casting tells me that this is one of those ones like Neutral Sect, where it gives both abilities, right? This is very clearly visually a shield. But most importantly, before that, you see little moons in the cards around them, or the vials around them, which tells you it's a shield because Nocturnal Sect. So yeah, my guess for that is it's just a reskinned Intersection, Celestial Intersection, which it's a pretty cool ability already. But that just, yeah, it looks a lot better. Right, immediately after that, we get to see what I think is the new Dragoon Gcd. So if you're watching here on the left of the screen, potentially an upgraded Full Thrust, which goes straight into a new Gunbreaker ability, which is either, I think, a new Burst Strike, or it could be a new combo finisher. I'm really hoping it's a new combo finisher, because right now Gunbreaker is a little bland in its 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the next thing that we get to see is a Sage GCD. So this is their offensive GCD, it looks like, with the Nulith spinning around the boss. And then we see the Bard ability. So this thing here is, I think, if you at the start of this segment I talked about the AoE equivalents for single target abilities, and I think this is the Refulgent Arrow AoE equivalent. Either that, or it's some new GCD, which is just like a fanning of arrows in front of them. And this is probably my favorite part of the trailer, because it leaves a lot of speculation in the air. So something that's really important to note before we see this is that Ifrit Egi is on the field right here. And Ifrit Egi being out means that Egi assaults are obviously going to be Ifrit based. There were talks previously about how there's going to be something changing in the way that Egis function, because Yoshida kind of alluded to the fact that Egi glams were being put aside because of something happening with pets. I think that the Egi assaults are now being moved to the summoner instead of causing the pet to take action. And now what was a Crimson Cyclone before, which was an AoE attack for your Ifrit, is now an actual Crimson Cyclone, which if you've ever done Ifrit, you know that Crimson Cyclone, well, if you've been hit by Ifrit, you know that Crimson Cyclone is his dash attack, his dive bomb. Which, funnily enough, we see a dash. Now there's a couple things to keep in mind here. The summoner does not go to the center of the enemy's hitbox. The summoner does not go to the edge of the enemy's hitbox. Which means either this is ground targeted, or it's like on Avant where you go a set distance forward. Either way, really cool. And a lot of speculation there. So we got a whole bunch of custom cutscene animations here, except for Reaper stuff, which we've obviously never really seen anything of before. So it's really hard to tell which of these are actual GCDs. I'm assuming that's a GCD. This thing here that you're seeing from Alize right here is actually the AoE that she uses in the 5.55 MSQ. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but we've definitely seen this in-game before. It's actually a really pretty animation as well. Couple things that we see here before the end. This is obviously a Sage Shield, which actually looks really cool. It's also using the Nuliths, which could either mean that the way that they function is some sort of energy gain within the Nuliths themselves, which can be spent offensively or defensively, or it's just flavor. And then what I think everyone is pretty sure is going to be a Reaper LB3 being blocked here. And there's one other thing that I'm going to touch on at the end of this, and it's that maybe, just maybe, if this isn't flavor, the red eyes you see on Xenos here could be hinting at potential LB3 changes. Now there's a really healthy way to do that, and it could be that the caster of an LB3 now gets a personal buff based on the LB3 they used. Because right now nobody wants to cast LB3, right? You immediately don't want to do it because it messes up their rotation, their timings. So this would be a good way to compensate for that. Either that, or it could just be because he's an evil bastard and wants red eyes. Anyway, that's going to be it for all of the new stuff in this benchmark. Hopefully we'll get more information coming soon. I can't wait to break it down with the rest of you. Thanks.